We're hoping the end might now be in sight, right? I think what we're reporting in truth is that there is progress on this $100 billion or more round. And so I think, the part that's new is that it's kind of phased. So portion number one, $100 billion or more, comes from just a few names: Amazon, SoftBank, Nvidia, and Microsoft, pretty much in that order. And there's some math to be done on pre-money and post-money valuation. Our understanding from a source is that the pre-money valuation kind of remains fixed at $730 billion. But because of its sort of increasing goal in how much it wants to raise and the reporting that it will later, once it gets through those strategic investors, go to the sovereign wealth funds and the venture capitalists and ask for more, that the net result is the valuation's at $850 billion, which post-money, that's a lot.
Either way, it's a lot, no matter what you're looking at in terms of its fundraising. You talk about the next phase of the deal where sovereign wealth funds and more institutional investors come in. What's the timeline for that? And is there a pretty long list of companies that are ready to sign?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I think the chronology is that at the end of this month, February, that's when we'll see that first phase or first portion close, or at least have those mega cap tech names commit their commitments, right? Say this is what we're doing. I imagine there is a long list of people that want an allocation in the world of venture capital. VCs already sit on the cap table, of course, like Thrive Capital is one. They just raised a $10 billion new fund this week. And then that process plays out over March. It's a little bit unprecedented to raise at this scale. And remember that in the background, OpenAI has an unusual structure. It takes time for the commits to be made, but also then the mechanics of wiring the money. And the last bit that I'll say is that, that people are basically dealing with Sam Altman directly on this, trying to appeal to him, like, let me in on this, because they see it as being a once in a lifetime kind of thing.
Use of proceeds, Ed. What do we know about what the company's doing with these funds?
Well, it's super interesting, right? Because, what can you do other than go against a publicly traded proxy in terms of the valuation as a multiple of whatever? We know that, OpenAI hit annualized revenue of about 20 billion in 2025, but it's massively compute constrained. Their argument has been quite consistently, if we had more compute, in other words, data center capacity, we would have more products, more different software tools, variations of the API, and it's the compute that's holding us back. So, we've done endless reporting about where they're committed around the world in terms of infrastructure build out, and that will be the mainstay of it.
Ed, before we let you go, we also have to ask you about how Amazon has now replaced Walmart as the biggest company by revenue. It sounds like an impressive title, but I guess the question here is, are we comparing apples with apples? It feels like Amazon's a very different company than Walmart.
It's like when the red headline hits the Bloomberg Terminal, you're like, oh my goodness, what a moment in time. But so the numbers are Amazon 717 billion, Walmart 713, or just north of that. The reality is that with Amazon, if you stripped out its cloud computing division, AWS, it would be 588 billion, and we wouldn't even be having this conversation, right? So it's not apples to apples, but just study the history of Amazon, read Brad Stone, editor of Business Week's books, he's documented this. A big part of what Jeff Bezos wanted to do was study the Waltons and what happened in the early days of Walmart and how it grew to be the retail behemoth that it is. And so at least I guess from their strategy, it's an apt comparison.